We're talking about the convergence of tech, music, and entertainment, and how they intersect because, well, those are things that are very important to me. And I work in the music industry, the tech industry, and the entertainment industry. And they intersect quite often because technology, just like music, changes rapidly. You know, music, popular music changes all the time. Fast technology changes all the time. So my name is Josh Donaldson, and I'm from Seattle, Washington. Now, I grew up in the 90s, and Seattle in the 90s, if you're not familiar, was home to Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and there was a great time, and that was when I fell in love with music, but it was also a great time for technology. Microsoft was really blowing up in the 90s. They were really bubbling. I remember the first time Microsoft stock split. I know where I was that day. How crazy is that? I was going to a lot of concerts, and it was just an inspirational time to be there. You know, I lived in Seattle. I left Seattle in the 2000s towards the end, but the entire time I was inspired by the innovation that was happening there. I was inspired by the creativity. I was inspired by the tech industry. I was inspired by the music, and that set the tone for the rest of my career. I decided to do, in the middle 90s, I decided to do a documentary on the music scene in Seattle, and I started filming. I was probably 15, 16, renting equipment and doing this documentary. And I found that good musicians, good DJs, are just like great programmers or eccentric business people. They're incredible at one thing, maybe at programming, maybe playing lots of instruments, but then there's probably some things that they're not so good at, where they might be amazing at music, but they're not good at business sense, or they're not very social people. So one of the things that has always came natural to me is I'm very social and I'm business-minded. So my passion for music and technology allowed me to work with these people and intersect because they needed somebody like me to help them in the areas that they weren't excelling in and allow them to work on their craft, whatever it may be. So I was filming this documentary, and in that time, I found that people much older than me that wanted to focus on music, needed good advice. So I started showing up. I was filming, but at the same time, I was giving them advice. I was talking to them and helping them, and I was a young kid. I was 16, 17, 18. Well, I should have been getting ready to go to college, but instead I started getting paid at the age of 18 to manage musicians that were decades older than me. I focused on this, and I'm going to get into one of my keys to success later on, which is risk-taking, and I took the biggest risk of my life. I didn't go to college. Instead, I started managing musicians immediately. And that took me to, over the last 19 years, I've worked with and managed and been a part of some of the biggest musicians in the world. I've worked with Tiesto, I've worked with Drake, I've worked with Lil Wayne, I've worked with Dr. Dre, just to name a few. Now, it's not just about that. We're going to talk about right now where I'm currently at is I'm in San Francisco. I'm a partner in these three projects. This is Temple Nightclub, the Mirus Art Gallery, and we have a co-working space, Eco-Systm. So I'm going to tell my story and how I ended up there, but this is important to know before because the keys to my success led me to here. So I live in San Francisco right now, and at Temple Nightclub, we have a building called the Zen Compound, which I'll show you later on in the presentation. The Zen Compound, we believe, is the home of music, art, and technology. So all of these things are fused there for us. So we're bringing in artists from around the world to show their work at the art gallery. We have 2 floors of co-working space. We have about 180 seats. We have executive suites. We have open seating, and we're eco-conscious. We believe in being green and health conscious, and that's what allows our success. Because in San Francisco, the co-working community is one of the most saturated there is. There's 30 constantly. There's 4 WeWorks within a block of us. What makes us different is how we bring these other elements in and how they intersect and how we tie them all together. At Eco-Systm, we found that there was a lot of companies that were startups that had entertainment technology. They were working on apps. They needed our advice. So we recently, this year, in 2016, we started a fund, an incubator, called the Zen Future Fund. And what we've been doing is we started doing equity swaps. So we'll take companies that we think we can help and we can believe in, and we'll take them and we'll invest some cash, we'll give them an infusion, but at the same time, we'll give them office space to work for equity. This helps with a lot of them. We've already done 5. One of the companies is Up All Night. It's a nightlife discovery app. They just got accepted 2 weeks ago to the new 500 startups. We're really proud of them. They're going to be in the new batch. Another company that we just invested in is called Subpack. It's a bass module that you wear on your pack so studio musicians could be in their hotel room or be traveling and feel like they're in the studio. Now, why would we invest in them? Well, because we're also in the business of music and entertainment. So with our network, we can help their startups grow. We can help these companies, and vice versa. So now on to the keys of my success. Number 1, advisors. I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to have great advisors. My entire career, I've had to find somebody to lean on at some point. Pick your advisors wisely. Make sure they know your company, they know you, they believe in you. They want to be a part of you. They want to help you grow. Are they there for you when you need them? This is so important. You have to know when to ask for help. This works in anything, whether it's a musician, whether it's an incubator, whether it's a startup, whatever it is you may do, at some point in your career, you're going to need advice. And this is something that throughout my career, I've been able to call very powerful people or not so powerful people that believed in me and understood. So I'd get to a T intersection and not know where to go. And I'd be able to call my advisors. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Good advisors helps any company grow. Use their wisdom to your strengths. Be able to call on them, and they can help you and help your company. Short money versus long money. Now, this is something that people don't really talk about, but this is something that's personal to me. This is something that is important to me and my success. 18 years ago, one of my advisors said to me, sat me down and said, "You're at an intersection in your career. Do you want to be short money or do you want long money?" And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. What that means is short money is somebody who's doing a quick exit, or there's somebody that wants to make a lot of money really fast. Is that what you want? Is that what you're looking for? I've worked for those people before. People that just want to make money and move on, that didn't create a very good company culture. It creates a lot of anxiety and stress. This might not work for everyone. These are things that have worked for me. I wanted long money. I've been in business for 20 years now. I've never burned any bridges. I've always been recommended. I've had a long career. In the startup game, long money would be customer retention. Do you want your customers to come back? Do you want to take care of them? Do you want them to believe in you? Do you want to work with them and grow with them for the next 5 years, 10 years? Or do you want to IPO? Do you want to sell really fast? Do you want somebody, a big fish, to come in and buy you out and get out? Think about what you want. It could be short money. Long money was the way that I wanted to go, and that was what worked for me. Next, risk-taking. Pardon me, I'm going to get a sip of water. Risk-taking defined my entire career. And this is something that some people believe in and some people don't. Everything I've done, from not going to college, was a risk. I didn't know how that was going to work out. I might have fell on my face. I've not been employed. I took a giant risk. Later on in life, I took a risk moving to San Francisco. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know if I was going to be able to survive. The most expensive city in the United States. I didn't know how it's going to be. My 2-year anniversary of being in San Francisco is next week, coming up. Risk-taking is something that you need to always think about. Don't be afraid to take risks. Believe in yourself, believe in your product, believe in your company. Think about what you want, but not be afraid to pivot, to change. It's okay to fail. There's been a few times where I took a leap and it didn't work out. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Some people will disagree with that. I believe in that. I've taken massive risks. At one point in my career, I was the vice president of a publicly traded company with over 2,400 employees. We had 23 venues. I had a decent six-figure salary. I had 401k, I had bonuses, I had everything going my way, and I was on the fast track to be a C-level executive. Well, that person that I was working for just cared about money, short money. He didn't care if we burned our customers. He didn't care if we burned our business colleagues. He didn't care what he did. All he cared about was the money. That didn't work for me. So I took a leap of faith. I left that job. Didn't have another job. I stopped. I was done. I burned out. I took a risk. And you know what happened? I became the tour manager for the #1 DJ in the world. I got a phone call from Tiesto. He said, I heard you're available. Would you like to manage the Kaleidoscope World Tour? We're doing 93 countries. I want you to run it all. I didn't know that was going to happen. I moved to Spain, left my family, left my friends, left my company, left my bonuses, left my 401k, and I went to Spain, and I was flown to 93 countries where I ran everything, down to every detail. We had to run a lean operation. We had to be able to adapt. We had to be able to survive. I took the skills that I had growing up and focused it there, and then at the same time, I had to be able to pivot at all times. You never know what's going to happen. This is in Alexandria, Egypt. We did a show for 12,000 people. This is 2 years, this is 2010, 2 years before the coup where they overthrew the government. 42,000 people showed up. They ripped down the fences, they ripped down everything. You know what we did? They came to us, the police chief, the head of securities. They said, if you stay here, you're going to die. I talked to Tiesto, and he goes, what do you want to do? I said, they came to hear some music. Let's give them a concert. If we leave and run, that's when we're going to die. That's when something bad's going to happen. Our security team left us. They said that we're not staying. It's not safe. Yeah, they ripped down all the security barriers, but you know what? We did a 4-hour show, and to this day, it was the greatest concert ever in Egypt. Again, risk-taking got me here. Taking a risk got me to San Francisco. Taking a risk got me on the road. Taking a risk got me that VP job. Now, this is something that really hits home, and a lot of people don't want to talk about. We talk about the highs, the successes, everything. Nobody wants to talk about burning out. Earlier this year, I was at a conference in Los Angeles, and there was over 2,000 attendees, and I looked on the itinerary, and I saw that there was a workshop on burning out, and it was like, know when you're burning out, and I was like, that really hit home for me, and I'll tell you why in a second. Now, I was in a room double the size of this with over 230 people that were listening to a team of lawyers from New York and from Silicon Valley that were talking about fundraising, raising capital, how to protect yourself. Everybody wanted to hear that. In the same room was the burnout discussion right afterwards. You know how many people stayed for that? 12. 12 people. You know what happened? It was so small, we sat in a small group on the floor, introduced each other's names. The moderators, which weren't listed, was the CEO and the founder of the conference, and her co-moderator was somebody who we all know, and I won't say his name, who's done 2 9-figure exits. That was the co-moderator. I got to sit with him for 90 minutes and listen to his story. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is important, because this is not something that people want to bring up. In music, in technology, what we pride ourselves on is how hard we work, how much we work. 24-hour hackathons, 48-hour hackathons, 36-hour hackathons. You know what I was doing? I was working 7 days a week, 100 hours a week. I was good at it. I loved it. I wasn't listening to my body. I would wake up, not eat, go to work. I would work all night. You always have a deadline. You always have a goal. You're always pushing. You always got to get your product out. You always got to change. You got to hurry. You got to be next to market. You got to beat somebody else. You never think about the toll you're taking on your body. Put your health first. That gentleman who'd done 2 9-figure exits, all he talked about was his entire life. He wasted. His kids were already teenagers. He didn't even remember them growing up. All he did was focus on his companies and his money. And then afterwards, he said yes to do keynotes around the world. His daughter was turning 9 years old. It was her birthday. He got offered to do a keynote presentation in, let me remember the details. It was in New York City, and she was in Atlanta, Georgia. And he said, oh yeah, no problem. I could do a 4-hour keynote and then fly there and be there by the time they cut the cake. You know what happened? He was so drained, so burned out, so exhausted, he wasn't even present. He was physically there, but there was nothing going on. His kids couldn't appreciate it, and his family couldn't appreciate it. He had all the money in the world. 2 weeks later, his family sat him down and did an intervention. It saved his life. He told us, 12 of us, that it saved his life. If the other 200 would have listened, it might have saved theirs. Listen to your body. Know when it's time to stop working. Stop. Put it down. Take a break. Eat clean and exercise. The woman who was the founder and CEO of these conferences that I was at, she talked about how she went from one conference to having 8 conferences around the world, how she was working nonstop. Her side hobby was she owned 5 co-working spaces. She ran a fund, ran an incubator, and you know what she ended up doing? Hospitalizing herself for 50 days. She had pure exhaustion, which caused 2 diseases. Now, these are extreme situations, but these are things to think about, things to be aware of as you're on your path, your career path. Same thing happens with musicians. How many musicians do we read about in the magazines burned out? They were on a world tour, and then they're hospitalized for exhaustion. Focus on your health. The money will come, the work will come, the work will never, know when to say no, the work will never stop. You know? Now telling a little bit more about me and my burnout. In 2014, I opened up the largest nightclub in the world. Me and my team of 3, there was 4 of us total, were single-handedly responsible for generating $108 million in gross revenue in 10 months. I don't care what company, anywhere in the world, that's impressive. But at what cost? I was working 90 to 110 hours a week. I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't sleep, I would work day and night, 7 days a week, and all we talked about was we needed to do more. We needed to break more records. We needed to be number 1. We couldn't let number 2 to catch up with us. We needed to, it got to the point where we were like, we did 1.4 million in revenue last night in 6 hours. How can we beat that? I got so exhausted and burned out that I stopped making good decisions. You can't make good decisions if you're not listening to your body. If you're not eating and you're not sleeping and all you're focused on is your product or your competitor or getting to market, you're not going to make good decisions. Take care of yourself. Take care of your body. It's okay to take risks. It's okay to work hard. It's okay to want to be the best, but listen to yourself. Life balance. When I burned out, I had to stop Las Vegas. I've been there for 14 years, aside from my world tour with Tiesto. I hit a wall. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't helping myself. I wasn't healthy. Pardon me. I ended up taking a break and doing nothing, which drove me crazy, because when you're working too much and you try to stop, it's like hitting the brakes on a Ferrari going 100 miles an hour. It doesn't end very well. You know, if we work hard and we want to be the best and we want to succeed, our mind isn't going to let us take a break. You have to force yourself. I ended up doing consulting work found myself in Ireland. I found myself in New Orleans. I found myself in England doing light consulting work. Nothing serious, nothing major. Then I got a phone call. There's a project in San Francisco. They heard that you're the best and you're available and they'd like you to come in and consult for them. That didn't intrigue me. Would you come in for a meeting? I came in for a meeting. What intrigued me was the incubator, the co-working space, the nightclub, the art gallery. Now, at the same time while I was consulting, I co-founded a small startup, which is still small, called EDM Jobs, because there's a lot of millennials that listen to EDM music, and what LinkedIn wasn't working for millennials was it wasn't posting their jobs. It's not their network. Everyone that I knew in my network got their jobs word of mouth. They heard about them. So we got together and we wanted to have a site where you could go find jobs in your industry or find jobs that you wanted. There's a lot of companies out there that list tech jobs, but there's not a lot of people that list how to be a nightclub, a manager, if I want to be a DJ, where can I go? So that's what we wanted to do. 3 of the LinkedIn original employees contacted us. They were willing to put $1 million behind us and change the company immediately, and they wanted to do an 18-month exit strategy. Again, short money. That's not who I am. That's not what I wanted. We told them no. Now it's a small site. We run it with interns, and we get people to send us emails. We don't care about profit. We get people to send us emails all the time. They're like, hey, I found my dream job on your site. Thank you so much. We're doing our best to update it, but we each put in about 4 hours a week on it. It's a hobby. It's fun. It grows exponentially, word of mouth. San Francisco allowed me the time to focus on that, to focus on myself, to focus on what my priorities and goals are. My business partners don't mind if I go to a music festival. My business partners don't mind if I take a trip. Hey, I'm going to Malaysia to do a talk. Great. When are you back? I just went to Burning Man for 9 days. It's a little aggressive, but it's very inspirational. There's a lot of brilliant people out there. My business partners paid for it. I've been saying no to things like Burning Man for 15 years. They said, hey, it's not about, you could get extreme out there, but you could also go out there and find inspiration. And I did that. And I came back, this was a year ago, and then I went again this couple weeks, and I took some people. And I started going to museums again, something I hadn't done since I was a kid. I started caring about my life. I started working out, started eating better. And you know what happened? All of my businesses got more successful. I took a small little nightclub that was in 20th place revenue-wise in the state of California, and I 6 times their gross in 6 months. Now, coming from what I was at, it seems like not that much, but not knowing that I was going to be successful in San Francisco, being able to work part-time and be successful because I cared about myself and I believed in myself, it really helped. Learn something new. When I was working 100 hours a week, you think that I found time to read books, to learn a new language? No. I'm on my 10th book this year that I want to read, that aren't like required reading. That's not like you need to learn this to be able to be successful. I'm taking the time. I'm enjoying my life. That's me. Thank you for listening. Now I have a video to show you really quick, just to give you an inside look of exactly what our projects are in San Francisco. You have the video? So Zen Compound is the name of our building. And we are the home in San Francisco of music, art, and technology. And we're currently looking at real estate in 2 other states, in California and in Seattle and New York. Can you go full screen on that? So this is us. We're right downtown San Francisco on 2nd and Howard. That's us. Temple Nightclub is level 0 and 1. space. Eco-Systm. This is where my team and I work every day, hand in hand with young startups and incubators. We've had 3 companies in the last year that we didn't invest in exit out of our incubator. We have a library, lots of art, lots of books. We bring in artists to do talks. We're changing the art out constantly. This is what allows us to be different and compete in San Francisco. Last, this is our art gallery. This is the Mirus Gallery. Every 40 days, we fly in a different artist from around the world to do a show. We've taken some of these artists to Burning Man. Some of them have taken us to Burning Man. This is Felipe Pantone. We did a show with him about a month ago. Josh Donaldson, and that's the Zen Compound, and thank you for listening to me. Do we have time to take any questions? Does anyone want to ask anything? Rav. Absolutely, but at the same time, musicians, just like coders, just like artists, are creative people, and they're like-minded. And if you put them together, magic happens. We have a lot of collaborations with some of our DJs that come in and we show the art gallery to. They can't believe it. They've reached out to them. A couple of our artists are now doing visuals for some of the DJs. We intersect all of them. So yeah, that's something that we're looking to replicate right now. We believe in having that, maybe not a nightclub, but maybe some live music or maybe a lounge or something that allows you to have that musical expression as well as everything else. So we haven't done any accelerators for musicians, but what we do have is we're revamping our studio. We have an online radio show that's going to be relaunching towards the end of this year. We have 2 music studios that I didn't show because we just like to keep those private, and we have people come in all the time that are recording music, recording live music. We used to have a record label that we're relaunching now. We've been doing a lot of staff changes because we're getting everything ready because we're now in the fundraising phase, and we're going to open up 2 of these in the next 12 months, 2 more, and then we're looking to hopefully go even further. My business partner was speaking in Beijing last week, and we have a lot of Chinese interest as well for this business model. Well, not everybody hates that, but I mean, I believe that there's a place for them to coexist. I'm not sure if anyone heard the question. It was something about the underground music versus being mainstream popular music, whereas EDM music is considered the mainstream, the Calvin Harris's, the Tiestos, and the underground music would be, you know, Solomon, would be Deep Dish, would be Guy Gerber. Now, me, having such a musical background, I listen to everything. I go to the BPM Festival every year to listen to underground artists. I've been going to Ibiza for 9 years, aside from living there at one point. But I also know that in order for the music business to survive, there has to be popular music. There has to be mainstream media. Now, there's a new startup called Dubset, which we just put into the accelerator program, our incubator in the last month. And they have this incredible technology that's already been licensed by Spotify and iTunes to where a DJ can put up a mix and their technology isolates all of it, sends it to ASCAP, and all of the producers of each song get paid off of that. So that's where it's heading, aside from just, you know, DJs putting up music and then those musicians that are making that music not reaping any benefits. So that's something that we're heavily investing in. We really believe in that. And they already have contracts with iTunes, Apple Music, and also Spotify, like I said. Slowly. Again, it comes down to, he said, when you're burned out, after you burn out when you're being successful, how do you go back? And how do you reacclimate? I think that it's about having an understanding of your health, taking care of yourself, eating better, exercising, understanding that it's not just about work, and then time management, honestly. Allocate a certain amount of time every week to something different, going to a museum, going to an art gallery, going to see a band, taking a walk in the park, going on a hike, whatever you can do. And then hopefully, for me, when I'm focused again on work, then I'm allowed to work that much harder. And like I said, coming back and having a better life balance, I'm happier, I'm a happier person, and all of my companies are doing better than they were before. Anybody else? MaGIC, thank you for having me.